6 AI agents, each built with a unique edge. Miko, AI, Team Leader. Ori AI, Fundamental Analyst. Exi, AI, Technical Analyst. Mesa, AI, Risk Management Specialist. Fenwa, AI Market Sentiment Analyst. And Naledi AI, the cryptocurrency expert. Together, they're engineered to protect, guide, and transform your trading. The future of trading is here. Experience Zentrix AI.
Okay, what's up people? Welcome back to another stream. Hope everyone is doing good. As always guys, if you're enjoying the content, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, all that good stuff, share it with your friends as well. It does really help support the channel, so I do really appreciate it. But hope everyone is doing well. Good morning King, welcome to the stream, hope you're doing good. As always guys, we'll start with the USD side of things first, take a look at the DXY, USD majors, gold and silver. And then we shall discuss some other pairs. So if you do have any particular requests, any pairs you're trading, any pairs you want my opinion on the stream's opinion in general, whack it in the chat and we shall discuss. But first things first, let's go through the dollar. Let's go through the DXY. So yesterday we were looking pretty bearish. We did see price eventually break lows. However, looks like we have recovered that to a degree. Now, I'm not necessarily convinced about an up move, but you can see where price is trading, which was at these lows here. And of course, price has been bouncing continuously at these lows. And we did dip below. We didn't really see the continuation, didn't really see the momentum come into the market, which is why we didn't get the continuation. And of course, price is now closing back above the area. So am I convinced about the longs? Not really, to be honest. Again, we've seen some nice rejections at these areas. Of course, price is back within the range. This could result in a much bigger swing to the upside if I draw in the high of the range over there. So, of course, price has just been consolidating between the high and the low. And we have been trapped between those two levels. Now, of course, price has recovered back above that area. It could potentially mean more upside. I'm not quite convinced. Every time I'm seeing price just about make new lows, yeah, I'm not quite convinced about an up move here. So not necessarily, I mean, I know prices faked the low and back above the range. So according to the textbook, as long as price now back above that area, we could see the continuation. And that could be the play, but yeah, I'm not quite liking the setup itself. So USD, I'm not necessarily bearish because we're back above support. I'm not necessarily bullish. I'm not necessarily banking on a continuation. I'm kind of just waiting for a bit more development. Maybe if price does come back and retest and show some momentum, I'll be a bit more convinced with the buys. But at the moment, I'm not quite convinced. I'm not quite convinced. Maybe if you do come back, start to reject some more, that might give me a bit more confirmation, a bit more confidence as well for the longs. But I'm not, yeah, I can see price closing back below. And of course, that would confirm the short bias again. I did say if price does break to the downside, this is where I'm expecting us to get to. So if we do manage to get back below that level, that area, I do think 96.380 is where USD will be heading towards. But we are, of course, in that kind of critical point, make or break. We'll see how price develops. And I kind of have that same take with Euro as well. Euro did manage to break out resistance yesterday, but again, did manage to climb back in, but not very convincingly. So again, I'm not completely convinced with this pushback down. Yeah, I'm not completely convinced. So with USD, I still do somewhat have that bullish bias that price will make its way back to the high here at 1.18305. That's still what I'm expecting. Would I be looking to buy now? No, it's not really yet any area of significance. So that doesn't really allow me to look for any buys. If we were having the break and we tested this area, that would have been something to keep an eye on. But as you can see, price is trading below. So it's not really providing a buy opportunity. And if anything, it could provide a sell opportunity if we do start to see some wicks, some rejection into the high there. That could result in a continuation lower. So with Euro USD, with the DXY, we're back inside the range. If price can really confirm that we're rejecting the low or the high of the range in Euro's case, then that could provide some opportunities to look into. Just simply a break and retest and probably a push back to the lower end of the range or the high end of the range in the DXY's case. So yeah, I'm just waiting for a bit more information. This is clearly price faking to the upside. Now we're back within the range. So if maybe instead of firing some wicks to the downside, we can put them to the upside, that will show that, okay, this is resistance again, and we could get that sell. So that's kind of what I'd wait for in Euro's case. But I would like to see more momentum in that bearish move there. That would give me a bit more confidence that, okay, this is that fake move. Price has recovered, and now we're likely to see the continuation. But I'll wait for candlesticks to print and get a bit more information there. In terms of pound USD, still stuck at the highs, I believe. Yeah, more or less still stuck at resistance. So we've got a very key level here around 1.35830. Price did wick into that level, a nice push down. There could have been some nice shorts. I wasn't overly sold on the shorts, to be honest. I do think price will eventually break through. But maybe if we had more of a significant rejection here, maybe a nice piercing wick through the high, then a recovery, I might have actually taken some short-term sells. But I wasn't quite convinced with that reaction either. I still do think the bigger move is going to be a push higher. The way price has rejected the low here, I do think the likely move will be a push higher for pound USD. But again, we do need to be trading above this area for the buys to actually make sense. I wouldn't want to be buying into that zone. Doesn't really make too much sense buying into such a critical level of resistance. But let's say if we do clear that level and we have this level to our backs, this does open up the opportunity for some longs. And as I said, the next big target would be all the way to the swing high at 1.378. So there is a lot of distance to cover. It's about 200 pips from this level to that high. So there's opportunities there, no matter the time frame really you're trading on. But this is really where the buys make sense. At the time being, we're not really trading anywhere really of significance. I mean, maybe in the lower time frames, you're looking at some pullbacks, some intraday pullbacks as we've been doing on an intraday scale, but still not really a big fan of buying back into that resistance there. So again, with pound, at least from a 4-hour perspective, not really doing anything for us. It would have been nice to see maybe a piercing wick through the high, then a recovery. That could have been a nice short. Not quite convinced with where we're trading right now. So again, waiting to see what we do back at highs, and that will help shape our buys for the remainder of the week and probably going to next week as well. That's really where I want to focus my efforts in terms of reading price. As for dollar CAD, I did get taken out for dollar CAD. Didn't really see the momentum in my favor. I still do like the shorts for dollar CAD. I did have my stop above the highs here. So as price did rally, this is where I was taken out for a loss. Didn't manage to get out early because price was still respecting this area. So I still stayed in the position and then did get taken out for a loss above the highs. Like I said, I still do have that short buy, so I will be prepared to jump back in for some more entries. But I need to be careful as well, especially what the DXY is doing. The fact that the DXY did fail to show continuation, of course, might mean some more strength coming to the market for dollar, which will make it a bit awkward to short USD CAD if we're going to see some USD strength enter the market. CAD's also been a little bit weak as well, so that hasn't helped the position. But we're still trading in this supply zone to the left there. So the plan is if we can hold this, looking for a drop. Or if this doesn't hold, I will look at the highs here as well for a short. Depending how we react, I think that's still a very smart place to enter the market. Stops above the high, looking for a downturn. I do still like this area a lot. So if this doesn't do its job and price does rally through the level, then 1.392 will be my interest going forward. So we'll keep an eye on this area for dollar CAD. Still too early to say if we will reject or sell off. It looks like price is having trouble at the highs here. So maybe if I dropped like an hourly chart, there might be something a bit more of an interest there. See, these are nice rejections with the wicks there, momentum shifting back down. The only trouble is that you are greeted with support right below. So even if you do take some shorts off the high here, which is some nice entries, some nice stop losses, you do have to watch out for this area here, because that could continue to consolidate and maybe price does break to the upside. So you probably want to either look to manage risk or trail stops, or even just look for a quick scalp. That's not a bad idea either. Of course, if you do see price get the break of that, it could open up the door to a push all the way back to the lows there as well. But it really depends how price does progress. On the lower time frames, some nice rejection, but watch out for 1.38406 because that could act as support. But yeah, we're still in that area of supply, so shorts still are valid. But if that zone doesn't hold and we do rally and we do see some more USD strength, then the shorts from 1.392 will be my interest going forward. As for Aussie dollar, back at highs, we did see somewhat of a reaction. I'm keeping an eye to see how we do develop because, of course, this is definitely a nice place for a short. We're also losing momentum as well. It's not like price is absolutely ripped to the upside. It's been mostly corrective. So that does show that, okay, despite the momentum, we are slowing down. As we approach resistance, maybe buyers are closing some positions, more sellers enter the market. So I am interested to see what Aussie dollar does at these highs. And again, if USD DXY is going to see that bounce at the low of the range, if we are going to push up higher, that should provide some strength for the dollar, which should provide some downside for Aussie dollar as long as Aussie is not outperforming the dollar, of course. But definitely an area of interest. I'm going to monitor how I react with 0.66250. And there could be some shorts there. We are approaching resistance. I still want a bit more upside before I really judge price. But we are in an area of interest. And I'll expand to the daily chart. You can see mostly we have been in somewhat of an uptrend, but it's very, very flat. So I do think even though the sells are a little bit anti-trend, are a little bit counter-trend, it's not such a bad opportunity. It's not like we're steaming to the upside in a really aggressive trend. We have been relatively flat. So there is a chance of a reaction, but I wouldn't be looking to hold for, let's say, a pushback to these lows. I would say that's a little bit too overconfident with that sell. I think if we can catch some shorts here, maybe a retest of that zone, then maybe price continues, but that short there could be worthwhile. And maybe we can speak about some longs later into the future. So I'll keep an eye on that for Aussie dollar, but nothing quite there yet. New Zealand dollar, interesting with this one as well. We are trading an area where, again, potentially a lower high could develop. We have broken through the trend line, which was the descending channel. So that has kind of not necessarily put to bed the bearish bias because price is still obeying structure. Again, descending, ascending channels are just reference points. Really, the thing you want to focus on the most is market structure. And this is our last lower high, and this is our last lower low. So despite the breakout, price could always recover that and come back within the channel. Fake outs are nothing new. This is really the key confluence, the key metric that price does need to break to really put the odds in favor of bulls and that we are going to trend higher. And of course, we haven't done that quite yet. So I'm kind of just keeping a close eye on New Zealand dollar. But again, would I be looking for trades in this area? Potentially, we could see a lower high. We are still quite corrective, but no. Yeah, I'm not quite convinced, to be honest. I think even a push down, we do have some prior resistance turn support in that area and a really nice area of demand. Could see a bounce from that zone, and of course, kind of retesting the low of the channel as well. But yeah, not completely sold on any opportunities here really with New Zealand dollar. I wouldn't say we're really trading at any area of confluence. We're neither testing significant resistance or the top end of the channel. More or less coming to an area of supply. So this is definitely bearish territory, but I'm not seeing a good opportunity for a short, at least one that I like. As for gold, we've been very bullish. Prices, of course, just climbing higher. As I said, just stick to the buys for now. Yes, there will be a time where price will put the top in and we will reverse. We didn't quite make 3,700, but we're not too far away from it. We are starting to find some wicks, so hence we are probably starting to slow down a little bit, but I'm not gonna call a reversal off that wick there. That's a little bit too aggressive for my liking. We do have some areas lower down which price could come back to revisit before continuing. I quite like the look of that area. Nice demand, really aggressive breakout. That could be an area which price does descend towards and perhaps have a bounce from. So I would suggest keep an eye on that area, 35.90, just below 3,600. in terms of the intraday price action, because that's kind of where you're going to focus most of your efforts, because in the 4-hour and daily charts, all you're just seeing is just bullish candles, so there's not a lot to analyze there, really, apart from just a lot of momentum. So hourly and kind of lower is where you're seeing more of a story develop. So yeah, gold, a bit of a move to the downside after some rejection. Doesn't necessarily mean any significance, not really any strong bearish pressure entering the market, nothing crucial. I do think a push to these lows could be a nice area of support. It does depend how we get there and of course how we react, but that's definitely an area where we could bounce from and potentially see a continuation, or at least a push back into some resistance. So I think in terms of entries, that's a nice area to focus on, and this area here as well for buys. So still focusing on the buys, just looking for smart areas to enter long positions. I would suggest 3620 and just below 3600 as some key areas to keep in mind. But of course, that's just one side of the story. How price gets there and how we react is the other side. So that's equally as important. It's not just a situation where, okay, that's a great place for a buy, just buy. Let's see how price gets there. Is it aggressive? Is it slow? That helps paint the picture. And of course, how price reacts will help paint the picture as well. And silver, have we progressed outside the range? Doesn't look like it. Yeah, we tried to, that was Monday morning, but that failed, and now we're still trapped within the range. So yeah, silver's clearly running out of steam right now. It's starting to consolidate. It doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to top out and see a move down. It could just be the market consolidating and then eventually break to the upside and the trend's healthy again and we continue. So it's 50-50 which way we do break out. In terms of opportunities, really, if you're looking to trade within the range, then of course these are your areas of interest. In the middle is where all the noise is, so I wouldn't suggest looking for any opportunities in that area. I think if you are looking for buys, then the smart place for it would be a push back into the lows here. Although I do not like the high there. I don't like the way price swept the highs and came back down there. It's a sign that we are kind of failing on that bullish momentum. So yeah, it's a sign that we are tiring, but momentum is still up. And let's say if we do push nice and corrective back down to the low, I do think you can at least get a bounce and at least trade that range. You might not necessarily get the continuation, but a bounce and a push up, I think that's a likely move. Again, as long as things look healthy in that area. So this is where I want to focus my efforts, not in the middle. That's where all the noise is. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the USD pairs in general. Of course, gold and silver, you need to kind of drop intraday if you're looking for any opportunities, and that's just because of the conditions of the market. And yeah, we're going to see those type of lower time frame opportunities develop. But elsewhere, I think there's some nice opportunities in the 4-hour hourly chart to look out for. But USD, I'm still kind of I'm not kind of sold on any direction right now. Anyway, what's up, people? Welcome to the stream, Dimar. Hope you're doing good. Doctor, told you about USD CAD. Bullishness is back. Your USD going down for the month. Yeah, I should listen to you, my man. I think every trade I take from now on, I'm going to run it by you just in case, man. I'm joking. But yeah, USD strength did enter the market. I'm not going to win every position. With that trade, I probably could have timed my entry a little bit better looking back. But that's a bit more of hindsight bias. But yeah, the trade did not go to plan. Take an L on that one. I'm still looking to short dollar CAD though. But I have to be careful, especially with what the DXY is doing, because we're back in the range. We could see that USD strength come in, so I'm not going to jump the gun. But yeah, good call on USD strength yesterday. Good morning, Bongani. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're doing good. Tony Gold, what's up, my man? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're well. It's going up on completely left monthly shoulder. Also now it's formed 4-hour inverted. Head and shoulder also broke neckline. Yeah, I mean, there's many ways to look at the market. I'm not really seeing the head and shoulder, the inverted head and shoulder, the monthly chart. Price for me is still retesting a very key level of resistance on the weekly / monthly even as well. So that keeps me bearish for dollar CAD. Oh, didn't mean to do that. So this is the monthly chart, and we're still trading below this level here. And the way I view it, markets had key resistance, broke that to the upside, and now has had a really aggressive recovery. So as long as price stays below this area, I will be bearish on dollar CAD. I'm looking for price to drop lower. If price does close strongly and break above this, you can see on the weekly chart in a bit more detail. If price does rally and break through this, then yeah, I will hold my hands up. I was wrong in the bias. I will shift to being bullish from then onwards and hopefully see some upside, maybe even back to the highs over there. But because we're below this key area, that does keep me bearish. And I will be looking for shorting opportunities as long as price is below that. And I do expect eventually a swing back to these lows. Like I said, if we do go rally through highs, that's where I would draw the line with that bias and reanalyze. But as long as we're below 1.39, 1.395 mostly, I will keep that bearish bias. But yeah, I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong. Maybe price does break to the upside. But that's the thing with trading. You only can trade what's in front of you. Trade the opportunity. If things change, you change with it. What's up, Bashi? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're doing good. Appreciate it. Yeah, guys, if you're enjoying the stream, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and share with your friends. All that good stuff does really help out. And of course, any pairs you're looking at, any trades, any comments, drop it in the chat, and we shall take a look and discuss. Raphael, what's up? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're well. Yusuf, good morning, my man. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're doing good. Appreciate it, Bashi. DXY, a bit confusing. Please watch your bias on the 15. Yep, we'll take a look as well. To be honest, I think today he's going to tell us if it's a fake out. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking into, because if it is a fake out, we could see a lot of strength for the dollar. I'm not quite sold on that just yet. I'm kind of waiting for a bit more information, but we can revisit that in a second. LFTJ, yep, we'll take a look at pound yen as well. What's up, Ivan? Welcome to the stream, my man. Hope you're doing good. Okay, let me quickly go through our perps platform. Actually, let me get the link to the Google Docs so you guys can drop your email if you're interested in participating in the challenge we're running. Again, just a bit of fun. We are doing a challenge on the perps platform. It will be with cryptocurrencies, but other markets will be coming onto the platform very, very soon. But again, it's just a bit of fun to get people on the platform trading. No risk involved, don't need to pay to enter, and there will be cash prizes for the best performing traders as well. So a little bit of incentive to have some fun and perform well. But if you haven't checked out the platform itself, I do have a link to the platform which I've pinned in the chat and also in the description below. I've also done a video on my channel kind of walking you through the process of how to use the platform and how to get started. But again, just with every other platform you've probably used, you can manage your positions in totality here, enter buy, sell positions, manage positions, put stop orders, limit orders, stop loss. You can manage your positions below. You have a wide range of cryptocurrencies to trade. But like I said, other markets will be coming to the platform as well. And we do have a very cool AI feature, which provides some assistance in terms of the analysis, which is really where the future of trading is headed towards, incorporating more AI and using that to kind of help ease the burden of trading itself, whether it's with analysis, risk management. This does provide full hour setups as well, so something to keep an eye on. So if you haven't checked out the platform, guys, make sure you go do so. And if you are interested in participating in the competition, again, just trading on the platform itself, check out the Google form, drop your email down, and more information regarding the competition will be coming your way. But anywho, we'll go through USD first for Raphael, then we can take a look at the DXY and the 15. Pound yen we'll take a look at as well. Pound USD. What's up, Loyanda? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're well. Labsy, what's up, my man? Look at Aussie. Okay, let me go through some pairs before I completely lose track. Okay, so Euro NZD. So we're coming off highs here, looking pretty bearish. Momentum has picked up, so it's looking quite interesting now. And I say this because we are trading in a big area of demand. We could bounce here, but of course there is no sign of that bounce happening just yet. So we want to be careful, want to be watchful of that. Looking at the higher time frames, price has just came into major resistance. back at the highs there. So we always have to be careful in the situation. Yes, there's an uptrend. Yes, the market is overly bullish. But do we still want to be buying these prices? Yes, if the trend is going to continue, but we need to wait for those signs. And equally, you probably don't want to be as aggressive with targets as you would be if you were down at these areas versus these areas. I wouldn't be as bullish on the market in this location as with this location, primarily because we're respecting key resistance, of course. So yes, the trend is up. Yes, the trend's your friend. And yes, there still very much could be a bounce. But I wouldn't be surprised if it does form a lower high and price does see lower prices in the near future. So as we do approach these areas, I do think eventually we are going to see that bounce and there could be some nice buying opportunities. But I would be careful. I would be very careful. So yeah, Euro NZD, we are approaching some areas where I do think momentum will start to run out. I like this area here as well. So I do think we are in areas where we could bounce, but it's too early to say. We're in free fall at the moment. I do want prices to start slowing down, becoming a bit more corrective, find support, and there could be a bounce to take advantage of. But then my expectation probably would be something like this falling afterwards. So if I would take a buy, it's more so I'm anticipating I'm taking advantage of a pullback for price to continue lower because of where we're trading and where we're rejecting. So yep, Euro NZD, a nice place for a buy. Keep an eye on price to see how it develops. Right now, it's too early to say. All I'm seeing is bearish momentum. So I wouldn't want to be jumping in front of that just yet. But let's see if we can start to find support. There could be some nice entries in this area. But again, target-wise, I probably would be concerned around this area here. Maybe price does continue, but I just wouldn't bet on it because of where we're rejecting. So yeah, Euro NZD still had that bullish bias, but nothing quite there yet. In terms of DXY in the 15-minute chart, so as I said, I'm not quite convinced with the DXY with this up move. Yes, we have had the breakout, and yes, we've recovered it. So technically speaking, this is a fake out, and this could mean a lot more upside. I'm just not quite convinced, taking into account what the higher time frames are doing, taking into account the higher time frame trend, take into account all the wicks I'm seeing on the weekly chart as well, doesn't give me a lot of confidence that price is going to rally. So I still do have somewhat of a bearish bias with the dollar, with the expectation of price eventually getting to that low. But of course, the fact that we have climbed back within inside the range doesn't really provide us with a bearish opportunity to actually trade that. So really what I'm watching for the dollar right now is what we do back at this range low. Do we start to hold it and momentum pick up? Okay, we'll probably see some strength and maybe a push to the high end of the range. If we do find ourselves breaking back below again, then I'm going to expect that bearish bias to play out. So really with USD on the 4-hour chart, I'm kind of just not convinced. I'm not convinced. By the textbook, this could be a bullish opportunity, but again, I'm not convinced. As for the 15-minute chart, we've had a nice rejection off the high there. Now we're approaching the lows over here. Would I be looking to buy there? No, not really. Price has just come back to an area of supply. It looks like that area's performing well, rejecting well. So would I be trying to take a buy off this low here? No. I mean, it could be an area which we do see a bounce, but I wouldn't be trying to bet on a big continuation here. So this could be a smart place for a buy. Let's see how price reacts and how we do get there. This could be a nice place to enter some longs, but I would probably bet more on a reaction rather than like a complete swing to some new highs. So that could be an area to keep an eye on. So yeah, 50-minute chart, nice bullish momentum. We are trading some supply I'd be careful of. Yes, we do have a key low here, which we can bounce from, but let's see how we react. And even if things do look good, I wouldn't be betting on a big move. Maybe at best back to highs. Of course, we could go further. I can't see into the future, but I don't think this is the best place to be positioned for that, especially where we're trading. Maybe if price for the DXY does show like a continuation here, then the buys after that would make sense. So if you can find some corrections of that, then the longs will make sense there, because at that point we've got an established trend. We're probably breaking structure to our left, and then an entry like this would be a very nice place to get long and take advantage of that swing, and maybe we do push to the high end of the range there. So that's kind of what I would wait for to get some more convincing buy opportunities in. But if you're looking for a short-term play, you might find some nice longs off that low. But yeah, the bigger bias, not quite convinced with anything just yet. Okay, so pound yen we can take a look at next, and we'll go through pound USD as well. So pound yen last time I saw was coming off a nice rejection of the high, although haven't really seen price progress much since then. So we gapped at the start of the week, gapped into the high, nice rejection, nice push down. Only about halfway though. You know, that's more or less kind of 50% of the range around here. And price stalled at that area now, seeing some strength. So again, that's why you want to keep an eye on that middle of the range, especially in very noisy ranges as well. We don't always see price do the full swing. 50% is a nice place to maybe book partials or just remove risk. You don't necessarily have to exit the trade here, but if price was to hit 50%, then come back to my entry, I would want to be taking out that position and then look to get back in. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. But pound yen is now pushing back towards that resistance. Again, naturally, there could be some more selling opportunities as we revisit that level. Probably drop into like an hourly chart is probably where you want to find some entries. Really nice entry at the start of the week there. Price just spiked through the high. Nice bearish engulfing candle. Nice reaction lower. I'll be looking at something similar happening again. Another push into resistance. Again, there could be a nice short off that high. This is really where you want to position yourself. Areas in here is just going to be so congested, difficult to find really good trades. Not to say that you won't be able to find a good trade, just it's a lot harder in those conditions, especially when we're ranging like this. You can see how consistent price has been at this high. If I want to find an entry that makes the most sense, it would either be at the highs or at the lows here. So that's really where my attention is in pound yen at the moment. Neither of those areas. So I wouldn't be trying to find sells here or buys down here. This is really where the focus is. So my best advice for pound yen would be wait for a rally back to resistance and then let's monitor price in that area. Then of course, hopefully there's some nice shorting opportunities. Or of course, if you do see a breakout, that'll be great as well, because hopefully you actually see a bit of momentum now, and that could lead into some really nice continuation opportunities and maybe a really nice break and retest of that level altogether. So that will be something nice to look into, because just pound yen hasn't seen any momentum for a while now. So I'm kind of hoping for the breakout, but we'll read more into that when we get there. But for now, just in a range, I wouldn't touch price until we get to the high. As for pound USD, I was actually keeping an eye on some shorting opportunities at the high of the range. I do think price will eventually break the range though, but I was keeping a high to see what we do at the high, because that would be a nice place for a short. But I wasn't in love with the entry. Price did reject somewhat close to the level, but I did want price to kind of pierce the high first and then give me the rejection. That's always a much better entry than when we don't pierce the high, because you can always see price maybe have one more push to take out those early sellers, and then we might see price tip over. I would rather price wick through than recover. So with pound USD, that is still very much the area of interest. Where we're trading right now, I suppose lower time frames make sense, because we do have, of course, this trend, but it's just because of the location and the fact that we're trading within this range. At least from a 4-hour perspective, all my interests will be here and here. Everything in between, I'm kind of turning a blind eye to, because it's just noise for me. Sure, on the intraday time frames, you can find some opportunities to take advantage of momentum. Follow this trend here. If I drop to the 15, I think this could be a smart place for a buy. I do like the wicks we're seeing in this area. Looks like price is somewhat falling a bit of a range here. So let's say if price does sell off again, reject below as well, that could be a nice place to bet on a long, especially with the backing of this uptrend here. Kind of looking for that to continue. Maybe it does continue back to highs. Maybe it's just a push to the high of the range and then we sell off. That's up to you, kind of management, and how you want to take your profits. But that could be a nice place for a buy. And let's say if we do see a convincing break to the upside, then of course some pullbacks afterwards could also be for a nice buy. So this is your more intraday opportunity, like a 15-minute chart. If this uptrend is going to continue, then a strong break of the high there would suggest that, okay, we're likely to return back to highs. So corrections and pullbacks after that would make sense. Or, of course, the buy in the low there as well. But would I be looking for sells here? Not really. No kind of convincing momentum, not positioned well. Yes, it's resistance, but I wouldn't really be looking for sells. If I'm going to sell, it would be up at resistance here, 1.359. And then, of course, if we do get that big breakout, which I'm kind of banking on, then that's where these highs come into play. And that's why I'll be looking for pullbacks towards that area and a continuation back into resistance. And maybe a breaking retest for some entries. But that will develop as we go on. So if we do get the breakout, bullish to 1.378. If we do respect the highs, then naturally just looking for a continuation back into support. That's really where the focus will be. A lot of pairs are ranging right now, so it really does depend what we do at the high and low of the range. Do we get the breakout? Does price respect it? We'll monitor that when we get there. But it's difficult to say beforehand, before price is actually at those levels. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with pound USD as well. Aussie yen for Lebsy, yep, we can take a look. King, what I think about euro, okay, we can take a look at that as well. Appreciate it, Bashi. It's news day, make sure not to trade, it's PPI news. Yeah, I mean, in my case, I will still trade because, again, if I don't trade every single news, it will be very difficult to swing trade. The thing about swing trading, you will run into news at some point, and yeah, you've got to able to hold through news. And that just means, wider stops, lower lot sizes to able to stomach that. Of course, if you're intraday, that's something else to worry about because you're a bit more exposed, tighter stops, higher lot size, spread will come into play as well. So yeah, intraday, definitely you want to keep an eye on that. No problem, Yusuf, happy to help. Okay, so Aussie yen. So last time I checked Aussie yen, we're trading back at resistance. And are we breaking through that? Maybe. Not quite yet, but we're hinting at it. So by default, this of course could be a nice place for a short. Major resistance, big push down, we're back at the high again. The trend is up, so you don't necessarily have a trend backing the short. I mean, you could argue that this overall trend is down, but again, that's a little bit too big of a picture there. I would probably focus more so on this trend, the more immediate trend to take into consideration. But of course, by default, we're at some nice highs. So there could be a nice short, and we are quite corrective as well. We're starting to slow down. So perhaps we could see price take a dive. I would wait for some quality rejection here to really give the confirmation. So what I would be looking for is maybe some wicks to the upside and then some strength on a close. And that could be a nice entry, but I would be careful as we approach back into an area like this. So there's not a lot of opportunity initially. Of course, in the bigger picture, we could see price completely sell off like we did here, but we are still very consistent with these higher lows. So if we do get a short entry, the first area where buyers can really come into the picture and take price against us would be this zone here. Maybe price does dip, forms a higher low, and pushes back up. So this is an area where you want to be on the ball and keep an eye out. Maybe price does form a higher low. Maybe price breaks out, and you see a lovely sell-off. Only time will tell really. But in terms of where we're trading, this is an area to short from quite clearly. Of course, if price does give us a breakout, that will change the bias, especially if it's with some strength. Then naturally, this will be a bullish zone, a bullish territory. And then we can speak about some longs and potentially looking to continue the trend. And if you are looking at trend following opportunities, that's what you'll be looking for. Price breaking the highs with some strength, of course, and then some pullback opportunities afterwards. But at the moment, we have neither. Price is not really rejecting well. It's not really breaking out. So it's a work in progress. You need to monitor price and keep an eye out. Too early to say what price is going to do. But definitely an area of interest to keep an eye on. In terms of Aussie yen, so we looked at Aussie yen. Okay, Euro USD. You said you missed a demand zone. So yeah, Euro USD, let me just start fresh. So Euro USD, like I said yesterday, we broke the high of the range. So the plan very much yesterday was, okay, we broke out, looking for us to stay above, respect support, and continue. Of course, we did not get that. Price came crashing back down inside the high of the range. Of course, this is the range. Price broke out. Now we're trading back within the range. So is this a fake out? Is this price faking the high to potentially head lower? It could be. What I would want to see to support that bias would be a push back into resistance and some wicks. And then, yeah, I could definitely see price doing that. I'm not quite convinced though. I'm looking at the higher time frame trend. I'm still betting on that continuing. I still do think price is likely to push back to highs, but I just don't have a bullish opportunity to support that bias because, of course, this is not the time or place to be looking to take any sort of buying opportunity. So with Euro USD, if I'm going to take a buy, I need price to be back above this level here, or of course push back down into lows, which maybe at this point is a bit unlikely, but if we were to push back into lows by default, that would be a nice place for a buy. But if I'm going to buy again, we need to be back above resistance. If anything, it's just to watch what price does at resistance, watch what price does at the high. That will help paint the picture. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of aggressive wicks to the downside, so it's quite clear support is holding. We are stuck in a range, so I wouldn't get too excited yet. We do need to break that to the upside to actually get us moving, but really aggressive wicks. Looks like this area of demand to our left has really supported price. You can see a brief pause there, explosion to the upside, a really aggressive wick. So yeah, it's a clear sign that buyers are doing their job here, and we could be on for potentially a bit of a rally. But we are met with the high of resistance, the high of the range, and that will paint the picture in terms of the next big swing. Is it to the upside? Is it to the downside? So my bias for Euro, at least intraday, probably would be for a rally, but the bigger move, like I said, depends what we do at resistance. This might be a fake out, this might be a pullback, and that could be a continuation. So yeah, Euro, I'm not really happy with price, at least on the 4 hour charts, not really doing what I wanted to do, so I'm being a bit more hands off. Again, the worst thing to do is try and force a trade. You want to be looking for opportunities that are quite clear, quite obvious. Not necessarily obvious as in, obvious to your plan, obvious to your strategy. The ones that make the most sense are normally the best trades. Trades where you kind of have to squint and tilt your head and try and make something up is not really going to be a good trade. So yeah, that's kind of my take on Euro. Okay, where was I? Okay, still holding shorts in Euro Yen. Closed partials, nice. We can take a look into Euro Yen as well. What's up, Matt2645? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're well. Thoughts on BTC? Okay. Oh, nice. Been held for 2 weeks. Closed 3 positions now. Entered a small short target of 109. Okay, holding long for 2 weeks, but you entered the short position. Okay, so a bit of hedging going on there. Okay, so we'll go through Euro Yen quickly, then we'll take a look at BTC as well. Of course, guys, just drop it in the chat. I will eventually get to the pairs you guys are requesting. So yeah, bear with. But Euro Yen. So Euro Yen, interesting. We pushed back to highs, had a really aggressive sell-off. Of course, Yen did see some strength this week, so all the Yen pairs did have a bit of a drop. I did say be careful with the shorts though, because yes, price is rejecting highs. It doesn't mean necessarily that the trend's going to reverse. Price could reject highs and later break through them pretty quickly, especially when we do have a very, very strong uptrend on our hands right now. We are stalling at highs. We are kind of consolidating right now, but that doesn't necessarily change the trend. It doesn't necessarily take away from the trend. It just means we're in a bigger pause. Maybe price does break lower, maybe price does break higher. We're just kind of in a bit of a consolidation, similar to what gold did. Big rally in a long-term consolidation. It did eventually break to the upside. So with shorts, especially at the high, you have to be quite cautious because that trend could kick in at any point. But still, in terms of the entry, in terms of location, it does make shorts. It does make sense taking shorts off the high, but you just have to keep an eye on the trade. So it looks like right now price is trading at these lows and failing to break through. I do like the wicks there early on. I'm not really seeing a lot of momentum if I drop to the hourly chart. I mean, I do like the rejection here, but it is just quite flat. If I was to take a trade here, my stop would have to be underneath the low here. But would I bet on that buy? Yeah, but I wouldn't probably look for a big move. I mean, maybe a push back towards this area, where we've got all this resistance here. I'll be fairly confident we can get there, but I would worry that we do sell off there, because I'm not quite convinced we're going to see the continuation just yet, especially with all of this bearish momentum. Yeah, that's not a healthy retracement. That's quite a significant reaction off the high. Not that we can't continue, of course we can, but I wouldn't bet on us continuing instantly. So at the moment, price right now, respecting lows. You did say you take some partials off 172.5. I think that's a smart place to close the trade. I think you said you got targets around the low here. Was it 170 you're looking for a push into? I mean, we could see that happen, but of course a lot needs to happen for us to get there. So yeah, what I'm seeing right now for Euro Yen is a bit of a fake of the low with this move here. Price has recovered and now respecting a support. I do think we can probably rally, but that's how far we'll be looking to take it into. Then maybe we do sell off from there again. We'll have to wait and see how we do get there. But right now, rejecting support pretty well. I do think we can rally. Maybe a strong close above resistance will be the confirmation for that. But yeah, I do think long term we are still likely to rally. I still do have some targets, 175 over there. I do think price long term will get there. Whether we make the move now or we push back first and then make the move, that'll be up to Euro Yen. Of course, if price does break through that, then I probably would rethink that bias or maybe look for a bigger retracement before that does happen. But I am still quite long term bullish for Euro Yen for now. But yeah, intraday respecting support pretty well. I do think there is at least some short-term buys on the table. In terms of Bitcoin, so Bitcoin really choppy, really corrective, struggling to see a move in any direction for now. We've been really corrective on the way down. Now price looks like it's consolidating. There is a pretty big level on the daily chart, which price is just bouncing back and forth between. So you got resistance there, support there. It looks like it's acting as resistance again. Price is kind of struggling to break above that. I said earlier in the week that if we do see a significant close above that, then that's probably the green light for BTC to start trending bullish again, at least to revisit resistance. We might not necessarily be looking at a big continuation, but I do think we can at least come back maybe towards this area here, maybe the high there as well. I'm not quite convinced on a massive bullish move just yet for BTC, but if we do break resistance there, I do think we can see a bit of a rally. So in terms of current price action, we are very flat. You said you did take a short recently, just into a small short 109. That's around, targeting 109. Okay, my bad. Targeting there. Okay, I mean, we are very flat, so the way I see price right now is that we are stuck in a range, so to speak. But I would be careful with these higher lows. So there's nothing wrong with targeting 109, but with these higher lows, prices starting to build up, you could see a situation where price does push back down and bounce again and maybe squeeze. Of course, which way we break out will be up to price. But that could be an area to kind of manage the trade and just keep an eye on it. If we do start to bounce to the low again, could be a smart idea to maybe lock in some partials or, maybe move stops to break even. Of course, this is just my suggestion. You can manage it however you like. But if I was short off the high here, that would be the first area where I would say, okay, maybe buyers do do enter the market, and they could potentially push price against me. So that's where I would be looking to manage the trade a little bit. And of course, if we do see a break of that counter trend line, probably gonna get to these lows anyway, so 109 looks like a safe bet to me. But yeah, I would keep an eye on that trend line As long as resistance does hold intact, of course, we just mentioned the daily level price is rejecting. As long as that stays intact as well, you probably do get that sell-off. But that trend line is providing some support there, so do watch out for that. In terms of Aussie CAD, I think, Yusuf, you mentioned Aussie CAD as well. So yeah, Aussie CAD's interesting. Really, really nice momentum. Price is absolutely flying. It's taking out some highs here as well. Of course, the current day is still live. We still do have about 11 hours left before this candle does close. So I can't read too much into the current candle in terms of momentum and how it looks, because in the next 11 hours it could change. It could perform another wick. We are trading at some very, very interesting highs. Of course, this did kickstart this huge sell-off here. So it's no small level that price is trading at right now. It could be some more downside. I was kind of hoping that price was going to reject this level, because I do like the buys back down here. So I was hoping to see price reject this level, have that pullback, and hopefully look for that long-term buy, because I do think long-term we could see a push back to the highs there. Really aggressive sell-off and then price reverse really aggressively. This is somewhat like a V-shaped pattern to me. Maybe not the textbook example of it. You kind of want price to impulse down and then continuously impulse back to the similar area, but we have made that move back. So I'm looking at this as somewhat of a reversal, especially the way price rejected these lows here. 1, 2, 3. I do think longer term we do make our way back to resistance. So I am pretty bullish long term with Aussie CAD, but I did really like this as a buy opportunity. Of course, it could still happen. Just because price is breaking the high doesn't mean we might not get that big a pullback. Of course we can. That's where I'm kind of looking at from a swing bias. But as of right now, we are trading above major resistance. The trend is quite bullish. I would still probably wait for the daily candle to close before really getting excited about the buys on the intraday time frame. Like I said, we could still sell off by the end of the day, and that will change how things look. Of course, momentum is still very much up. It looks to me that we're kind of stuck in a bit of a range now. So we'll see how price develops here. If we do get another break to the upside, I think probably safe to say the daily candle probably will continue up. And there could be some short-term pullbacks off that. If we do eventually break to the downside, yeah, that could be a bit of a worry there. But as I said, I probably would wait for a strong close in the daily before getting excited, because even though price is trading above this area, this whole kind of area is just a very sensitive place in the market. So looking for continuations, looking for momentum, always can be quite tricky. Sometimes price will look like it's breaking through a level, then by the end of the day it pulls back down, or it might close above one day, close back below the next day. So this is just a very kind of tricky area to maneuver, especially on an intraday chart. I would still be very hesitant looking to buy and follow momentum. I'd want price to at least give me a strong close, preferably even really just pull away from the zone. Then I'll be more confident with the pullbacks and continuations. So yeah, especially intraday, I'll be quite careful following that momentum. I'd want to see how we close by the end of the day. It could be some very small short-term buys, but I wouldn't look for any kind of long-term position. And in terms of the longer-term swing trade, as I said earlier, this is what I'm looking for. Pullbacks, I do think long-term 0.935 is probably where we're going to end up. So I really do like the buys longer term. Dash, will you trade tomorrow news? Depends if I'm in a trade. Like I said earlier, I will hold positions through news. Pretty much any news event, I will hold a position through. I wouldn't want to enter just before a news event. So if I do get a signal like an hour before news, like a big one like an NFP, CPI, interest rate decision, I probably would hold off the entry, because I'm just going headfirst into the news. But if I'm in a trade a few hours before, or the day before preferably, then yeah, I would look to hold through the news. But again, I'm not looking to trade the news inherently. It's more so I'm just trading price action, I'm trading the opportunity. It's just that news is about to come out. So no, I do not trade news exclusively. I trade the chart, I trade the opportunity. Sometimes I will be holding through news. But no, I don't exclusively trade the news, if that's what you're asking. No problem, Lebsy. Happy to help. All right, take care, Bashi. Have a good one, my man. Yeah, guys, if you are enjoying the stream, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe. It does help out. And of course, if you are enjoying the stream, share it with your friends and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Paradox Trade, I'm doing a challenge. Nice. All the best with the challenge. Yes, the counter the buys, the continuation. Locked. Okay, break even. Okay, nice. Yep, I can take a look at the yen basket as well. Incoteco, yep. S&P 500, we can take a look as well. Gold analysis, yeah, we can take a look too. Matt, cheers, my buys, BTC's bullish, but okay, but fell. We need to liquidate some longs. Yeah, we could see that happen, especially because the move is really corrective. We might sweep down first before we do push up. We'll be looking to buy back and adding. Okay, cool. Yeah, makes sense. I pretty much have the same take as you there. If I have missed out a pair that someone's mentioned, just drop it in the chat again, because I might have done that. But I'll go through yen basket, S&P, and gold, and I can go through some pairs on my watch list as well. So yen basket, yeah, yen basket is just a bit of a confusing one. I'm not gonna lie to you. Markets up and down all over the shop, not really providing much consistency. Again, we've got major support down at these lows. So that's really where the focus does lie. 62.89 or 6300. And then of course you got highs over there, but more so price has respected this area pretty well. So as you can see, once over there, of course, this is kind of your slight fake out, like there as well. Then price came back to retest the resistance, really nice sell-off. So at the moment, more or less, price is kind of trading in the middle of the range, which is where, again, where all the noise is, and I don't see much opportunity in getting involved in these areas. These are the areas which I want to stay far away from. I want to get involved at the lows or get involved at the highs. So in terms of direction for the yen basket, it's up in the air, to be honest. Yes, we've been bearish, and you could argue the direction is bearish, which I wouldn't disagree. But of course, for the past month, we haven't moved anywhere. Price hasn't changed anything since mid-July. So it's actually almost 2 months now, actually. So we haven't really gone anywhere. So yes, the higher time frame is bearish. We have seen price continuously move lower. But for the past couple of months, we have been very flat. Maybe we do see the continuation of that trend. Maybe price does break lower. But I would argue there's a equal chance we do break to the upside and this does form into a bottom. So until I get the breakout of this high or of that low, I'm not going to have a solid bias on the yen basket in terms of the next big swing. In terms of opportunities within the range, just like I say with any range, looking to buy at these areas and sell at the high makes the most sense. I actually quite like the buys, to be honest, with the yen basket. I'm seeing very powerful moves to the upside. So I would suggest if the yen basket does drop again and we reject the low as well, I do think that would be a smart place for a buy to bet on some yen strength. And of course, that'll probably give us some moves down on the yen crosses. But like I said, in terms of direction, that's what you're asking for. It's difficult to say. We are very, very flat, so I can't read too much into price right now. This is the area which will make sense to bet on a reversal, and likewise with the highs of resistance at 64.89, basically 6,500. But right now, middle of the range, I wouldn't look to try and bet on anything here really. And you're kind of seeing that situation occur in a lot of the yen pairs, a lot of indecision, not really doing much. Pound yen, euro yen, Swiss yen to a degree, although I do like CAD yen, which we can take a look at in a moment. But let me just go through some more requested pairs. So the S&P 500, last time I looked at this, looking bullish, and that is still the case. It's still on the way up here. But again, we're now trading at highs, so what's the game plan now? Well, if you're in a buy, you're looking good. Maybe you're looking in some gains and leaving some to continue. You don't necessarily know how far price is going to move, so if I was in some buys, I would probably close some profits at the high because there is a high chance we do turn over. I can see at the prior highs here, every time price does sweep a high, we do have some type of bearish move. You can see create a high, bearish move, create a new high, bearish move, create a new high, bearish move. So again, I probably would bet on that happening again. So I would probably lock in some gains, but I'd also leave some positions to run, because with an uptrend, it's the S&P. Who knows? Maybe we do get a bit of a surge to the upside. But if you're not in a position, would you be looking to sell? I would think it's a bit too aggressive for a short. Yes, we are quite corrective, but I probably would wait for maybe like a really aggressive wick piercing through the high and then a really aggressive recovery. And then even with that, I probably wouldn't bet on a move even more than this. I would probably look to see if I can get a move to there and then lock in some gains. Maybe price does roll over, maybe we do continue further, but I'll try and protect myself when we get there. So that'll be moving stops to break even, maybe taking a small position off the table, because this is still a very bullish market and we have to respect that. Yes, it is becoming a bit more tired. Yes, we are looking a lot more corrective now. So at some point, we do expect the S&P to go for a bit of a sell-off. Absolutely, but that might still not happen for another 2 weeks, another month potentially. So you don't necessarily try and predict that and try and continuously call tops, because we could always see this trend continue. Is the S&P. That is exactly what the S&P does. Shorts are always going to be a tricky maneuver. But we are located well, and judging price, as I said, at the highs, it keeps selling off. So there's probably a good chance we do sell off again. But I'd like to see a really aggressive wick, piercing the high, maybe stopping out some early sellers, getting some buyers trapped on the wrong side, and then an aggressive reaction after. Then even with that sort of rejection, I probably wouldn't try and bet further than this area, at least initially anyway. So I could see price pushing down, another higher low, and then a continuation. So yeah, if you're looking at the S&P, you said I'm bull 2 weeks. What is your analysis? Yeah, I would still be bullish as well. Where would I look to try and take a buy for this one? I'm not too sure where, to be honest. Would I try and buy here? Probably not. I said that's an area which I would try and manage the short position, but would I try and take a buy here? No, I think it's a little bit too high up and too close to the high for my liking. I'd probably want price to have a bit of a sell-off first, and then look for a buy later on. But that, again, that could take a couple of weeks to develop. So I don't really have like a clear buy opportunity. Yes, this might be an area which give us a reaction, but it's a little bit too close to the high for my liking. So I probably wouldn't entertain that. So yeah, I don't really have much to go off with S&P. I mean, you can see how price reacts there, but you're going to be met with resistance straight away. So it's not like we're looking for a big swing here. It's more so, okay, bouncing off demand, might see a push back to highs. Be careful, we could roll over. But yeah, I would of course still be bullish on this one. I would still be bullish. I do think the short's coming soon, but too early to say. And as for gold, so yeah, look at that gold. Lovely price action in the daily chart. Broke out that range, and gold hasn't looked back since. So I did say the plan for gold is still very much looking to buy the market. I did highlight a couple of areas at the beginning of the stream. For a long, I said this low here and this demand zone looks good for a buy. Of course, it's just a waiting game. Will price get to those areas for the buy opportunity? Maybe. Will it get there and react? You have to wait and see. Maybe price just does rally from here and continues to high. So unless you're already in a position, maybe you do miss out on the move. But let's say if we do push down, this would be a smart place for a buy. I can see price potentially double bottoming and then continuing. Or if we do go for a bigger correction, I can see somewhat of like a bearish channel form, a bull flag pattern, another push back down into lows, strong demand zone. That again could give us a nice reaction to at least the top end of the range. Maybe price does roll back over, but that itself would be a nice trade. Then of course, if the trend continues, maybe you catch a really nice swing back to highs and maybe beyond that as well. So there is still a lot of upside opportunity for gold, even despite the big move we had. Yes, the market's going to retrace soon, and we're going to have bigger pullbacks at some point, but momentum still looks really healthy. Daily charts still showing convincing momentum. I know yesterday's candle did provide a bit of a wick then closed bearish, but that doesn't necessarily have a big impact on the momentum. not in my eyes anyway. So yeah, everything is still looking really bullish, especially if you're intraday. I think the short-term buys make the most sense, and you do have some nice areas to look into. So that's what, 36.21 and 35.99, so just below 3600. Those are the two areas that make the most sense to me. But yeah, very, very bullish for gold, and I do think higher prices are still likely. I think 3700, which is just above us over there, is likely to be hit. I think 4K is likely to be hit, but of course we might have a bigger pullback before we do see that. So I wouldn't necessarily bet on that too quickly. But yeah, very, very bullish on gold. Okay, so next I will go through. Okay, LFTJ, yeah, we can take a look at pound Aussie and Euro Aussie for you, no problem. So Crizzy, we just went through gold. What's up, Coffee Spinner? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're well. Yes, we can look at the Japanese index, no problem. We can have a look, see. Okay, so pound Aussie, Euro Aussie. Again, the analysis with these two pairs is very similar to the analysis I did with, if I can spell it, there we go. Very similar to the analysis we did with USD, which is actually not so much pound Aussie, but Euro Aussie. Pound Aussie is in a big range. We've got the low of the range around here, and you got the high of the range around there. So it basically is, we're looking to see if we can bounce at the low. And if we do bounce at the low, there could be some nice buying opportunities, take it back up. Equally, if we do break out, I quite like the short opportunities. I do think there's a lot of distance to be covered. I do think price can, at least come back to some of these areas. Therefore, there is a lot of room on the short, and definitely something that I'm interested in. But of course, we haven't got the breakout yet, so let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Right now, what the plan is, monitor what price does here. There could be some nice buys in this level if we are going to respect it. At the moment, we had one bounce over here. Price didn't really do too much. We're back there again. I do like how slow and corrective it is, so that does imply that we're kind of running out of juice and perhaps the bounce is likely. But the key thing we're looking for now is wicks, rejection at this area to support the buy. I think even better if we could see price maybe even wick through the low there, just so we can get some really safe stop losses underneath the whole structure and then catch the low. But yeah, at the moment, things are still bearish. We're still in free fall a little bit here. We are still falling. So I wouldn't suggest there's any strong buy opportunity to bank on just yet. But yeah, I do like the location of where we're trading. And yeah, we can see a bounce. But it's important that we do start to see that rejection, some wicks coming into play, and then we can bet on that. But yeah, too early to say if price is going to bounce or if price is going to break to the downside. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter which maneuver price does make, because there is room to the upside to profit on. There's room to the downside as well. So it's just about taking a good trade here, really, no matter the direction. So yeah, pound Aussie, something to keep an eye on. Yes, trading at a very key area, but not seeing much of an opportunity to trade just yet. Euro Aussie as well. We are approaching some lows, so this could be a smart place for a buy. I like what I'm seeing here with Euro Aussie. Now, to me, Euro Aussie is a market which is tiring. Yes, it's still bullish, but the fact that we had this strength, this bullish move here, which all it led to is just price sweeping highs and coming straight back down, it's a sign that we are tiring. We're no longer getting back to highs. We're no longer seeing the aggressive momentum. We're seeing really corrective behavior on the way up. So this is a trend, to me anyway, which is on its last legs and could be looking to reverse pretty soon. But despite that, momentum is still largely to the upside. So buying at support like this is still a very smart area for a buy. I just wouldn't be necessarily banking on a big continuation. I'll be more so betting on a reaction, maybe a push halfway through that range, then maybe we do turn around. But still a push from here to there is probably still worthwhile for a trade. So I do like where we're coming into right now for Euro Aussie. The plan would be looking to see maybe if we can go and sweep the lows here. So that low there, 1.76752. If you can push down, maybe sweep the low, nice little wick, reject it. I think at least a push back into this range would be a smart trade. We could go a lot further, but that's what at least would be a first target, we could say. So yeah, I mean, at the moment it's free fall right now, so no buying opportunities yet, but definitely an area to keep an eye on. I think 1.76752 can at least give us a bounce, even if the bigger move is to the downside. And what I would suggest is, if you do see a big break of this, let's say price completely dumps through, then that would make me really bearish on the pair, and then I would be looking at a push back to this low, because that for me would be a really big double top rejection. That would be a break of structure. Now I'm looking at a pullback, a lower high, and then some more shorts. So I'd be really bearish if we do see a sustained break of that level. But of course, we'll judge that closer to the time. Let's see what price does there first. So yeah, Euro Aussie, key area to keep in mind, and hopefully some nice opportunities to follow suit. Okay, we'll take a look at the Japanese index next. LFTJ. Okay, gold buying the hourly from 110 to, oh, BTC. Okay, trading my stops, just waiting to see how it can react at 118. Okay, cool. We can take a look at that as well. Interesting, we've got someone who's short BTC and someone who's long as well. We've got the battle of the Bitcoin right now. But yeah, I mean, BTC it's a bit of a range, so there's actually some good selling opportunities and buying opportunities. Just depends which way we break out. But yeah, we can take a look at that as well. Let me have a quick look at the JP225. So, ooh, okay, lovely trend here. So it looks like yen is on the up. Okay, just seen some new highs as well. Yeah, everything's really bullish here. Of course, this is naturally going to be an area where we have to stay on our toes because we are creating new highs. So this is an area which, you know, any kind of long-term buyers will be looking to lock in some gains here. And we could see price react accordingly. But the trend is still very much to the upside, continuous higher highs and higher lows. Of course, we've just swept some new highs, so we've created a new high there. Could there be some shorting opportunities here? Temporarily, yes, but I wouldn't be looking for any sustained move at all. The market is bullish on pretty much all time frames, monthly, weekly, daily, 4 hour. You're seeing a pretty strong bullish trend. So if you are going to try and call tops here, it's more so kind of a scalp, really, kind of like what we did here. Really nice wick rejection, strong close. And there's your entry, stops above the high. Your price came back into that first area. That's your first area to start preparing your exit, or just managing the trade. Maybe just moving stops to break even, or securing partials, because you don't want to be in a trade where you're trying to call the tops, momentum picks up, because 7, 8, 9 times out of 10 price is just going to go to highs and take your stop loss. If you're taking shorts in an aggressive market like this, you're more so kind of betting on that high reacting. Maybe it does turn into reversal, but it's difficult to predict that outright. You know, if you do catch the reversal, congrats, but it's nothing there you can be so confident with, especially in a market like this, in an indice which is charging to the upside. So as we do approach resistance again, naturally there could be some more shorts to keep an eye on. I probably would want to see a rejection similar to the one we saw here. So maybe a nice piercing wick through the high, even through that high would be nice. And then a strong recovery. Then equally so, I'll be careful as prices are approaching this supply zone, not looking at any kind of big targets. And if you're looking for buying opportunities, then you want to see a convincing break of the high, and then another, healthy pullback, perhaps to retest the same area. Kind of something like we did here. Really nice breakout, came back to retest the high, and price continued to the upside really nicely actually after that. So you're kind of looking for something like that to develop. So yeah, Japanese index still quite bullish, retesting resistance. Maybe we do take a bit of a dive from here. I need a bit more development from price to confirm that. But yeah, if price does rally through the high aggressively, we're still bullish. We're just gonna expect the trend to continue, and yeah, this will become a nice level of support to potentially buy from. So still a little bit 50-50 with the DAX, not the DAX. Don't know where I got that from. Still quite 50-50 with the Japanese index. Of course, trend is up, so I would be bullish. But we're at an area which we can take some short-term sells. Just need to be careful with that. And if you are just wanting to find buys and follow the trend, then of course we need to break resistance in order to do that. So breakouts will be necessary there. But yeah, for BTC, like I said, we're kind of trapped in a bit of a range right now, especially on the lower time frames. I would say price is kind of trapped between resistance here and support with that trend line. So we're kind of just back and forth a little bit. So I wouldn't be doing anything crazy with BTC until we get the breakout. So if I was shorting, it would be at the high. If I was buying, it would be at the low of the trend line, just anticipating price to bounce continuously. So let's say if you did get a buy, you know, from that trend line, from that low, and you have seen some nice momentum, well, this would be at least the first target for the trade. It could be the final target for the trade, but at least the first target. That's an area which you want to be a little bit cautious of. You said you had an entry from 110 to 50. 110 to 50, so that's around here. Okay, looking good. Just trading stops, just waiting to see how it reacts to 111.898. 111.898. Okay, that's around there. I'm guessing maybe like an area of demand you're looking for a reaction from. Is your trading stop below that area? I'm guessing so. But yeah, as I said with the condition for BTC, I kind of see it as more or less a range, or like an ascending wedge, or whatever the pattern's called. Price is trapped between resistance and support, and it's going to eventually break out. In which direction, I'm not too sure. But we are still rejecting major resistance around kind of the 113, 112. This is a big level on the daily chart, so I need to watch out for that. But yeah, if I was in a buy, that would be at least the first target for the trade. If we break through that, great. There could be a lot more upside. It is BTC at the end of the day. If it does break resistance, it could really rally. But yeah, we'll believe it when we see it, sort of thing. But yeah, really nice entry. Keep an eye on 113. That could be an area which price does reverse against you. But if we're at on the other hand, if price does break through that, it could be the kickstart of a very big up move. King, Euro, Dollar, we shall take a look at that as well, no problem. Rejected resistance, okay, we can have a look. Bahram, welcome to the stream, not sure if I missed in live. But do you see sell on Aussie dollar 1530? Yeah, I can take a look at that as well. I think, of course, is price hitting a major resistance around 0.66250. So yeah, I do think there could be some shorts on Aussie dollar. We can talk about that. Let me go through Euro. Okay, it's below that area. Nice. Yeah, it makes sense, LFTJ. I'll just say keep an eye on that resistance, but I'm sure you got your own kind of management plan. That's just what I would do if I was in a similar position. As for Euro dollar, you said it's rejected resistance. I'm guessing you're talking about the 15. And yeah, it definitely has really aggressive rejection of the high. So it looks like that range price is in is still being respected, and that's selling off pretty aggressively. Nice little wick into the high there, strong close, seeing some nice momentum on the way down. So there is not much to do here, especially in the range, unless you're already short at the high. You're waiting for price to get to the low, and there could be some longs equally so off the low of the range back up again. But yeah, the key thing I'm looking for Euro dollar is this: if this is a fake out, if this is price, you know, faking to the high and now coming back in the range, then we could be very much in for a big sell-off. What I want to see price do is kind of wick into this area, and then that kind of helps support that bias. Because right now all we've got is just a strong break back inside, and I'm not too sure if price is going to break back up, back above again, or is it going to look to continue. So from a 4-hour perspective, this is really where my focus is. What do we do here? Do we fire some wicks like we did over there? This could actually look like somewhat of a head and shoulder pattern. Left head, right shoulder, kind of like a weird neckline there. And then there's your sell. So I can see the price doing that. And at the same time, I can see price turning around. But yeah, from a 15-minute perspective, nice respect of the high. We'll see what price does because it is trapped in the range. So this momentum doesn't necessarily mean much because we could see similar momentum on the way back up again from that low. Until we do make a decisive breakout, there's not a lot to do. But yeah, we are definitely respecting the high. So Aussie dollar is an interesting one. I do like the sells, but I do want price to push a little bit higher because I do want to see us maybe spike through the high, then recover. And that could develop into a very nice entry because Aussie dollar looks like to me it's running out of steam. It's running out momentum. We've seen a lot of strength here, but it's becoming a lot slower now. And of course, if I zoom out to the daily chart, you can see that there is a slight uptrend at play. So we have to be a bit cautious of that. You know, we always have to be cautious where momentum is heading, especially if we're going to go against it, which shorts at the high technically would be. But it's not an aggressive trend. As I said earlier, it's not like prices flying to the upside like what gold's doing. It's a very kind of flat, very corrective trend. So you can get away with selling the highs a bit more of these type of conditions because you're more likely to see price respect the high than just rapidly break through like you would see in an aggressive trend. So the shorts do make sense at the high. Again, not necessarily banking on a push all the way to the low there. More so maybe just a retest of structure here. 0.656. If you can get pulled back into that area, I think that's a smart trade in itself. Then you can always maybe hold some positions to run further. But yeah, the plan for Aussie dollar is monitor around 0.66250. What do we do there? Do we fire some wicks? Does rejection look good? Do we see some healthy candle closures? If so, I think that would be a smart place for a short. Stops above the high. As I said, at least a push back to this area, and then we'll go from there. Maybe we bounce, maybe we break through, but that's something I can be happy with betting on. But yeah, that's kind of where I want to get my entry. That's where I kind of want to get my stop and targets at least to 0.656. So yeah, Aussie dollar shorts do look good. In terms of the 15-30 minute, because that's more like an hourly chart, would I be looking to short on the 15? No, not really. Price not really at any area for me to short from. It looks like price is failing at maybe creating a high, but if I was shorting on the 15, it does need to be back at structure. This is kind of just in the middle of this kind of trading range, neither at key resistance or key support. So I wouldn't really try and bet on anything here. Maybe price does form a lower high. Maybe we do push down, but not part of my plan of how I want to read the market here. So I would be waiting for a push to the high before selling on the 15 or the 30-minute charts. Not really located well enough for me. And likewise with the 4 hour as well, not quite at the high. So yeah, I want to see a bit more upside than hopefully a sell off the back of that. Bernard, hello, pound CAD. Yeah, we can take a look at pound CAD as well. So pound CAD's been an interesting one, very bullish. It looks like it's trying to break to the upside. But at the moment, I wouldn't say we've quite done that. I would still say we're trading at resistance and we're kind of in limbo right now. Maybe price does respect the highs, maybe we don't. But we did have a very, very aggressive move down. We consolidated and then picked up momentum quite rapidly. Now we're back at the same level. I do like the wicks we're seeing. I do like how corrective we are. So it looks like momentum is slowing and perhaps we are getting ready to form a bit of a top. Of course, if we are going to see a breakout, then I want to see convincing momentum away from this level. So candlesticks that kind of represent something like this. Doesn't necessarily have to be as big as that, but I want to see momentum pick up, and that, of course, will tell me price is breaking resistance there. But this is the time and place for a sell. If you're going to short the market, back at highs here makes the most sense. Might not necessarily be banking on a complete sell-off back to these areas, but maybe a retest of that, maybe a retest of that is a likely sell. Push to 1.866 or push to 1.864. You can probably bet on something like that happening. Again, the higher time frame trend for pound CAD, I would say is bullish. I mean, we are flat right now, but I would say we're in a long-term uptrend. So this is still what I would deem as counter trend. But because we are flat, I think again similar to Aussie dollar, not really seeing an aggressive trend. So shorts at the high aren't such an aggressive trade, even even though we are kind of against the larger momentum. So in terms of entries, what are we looking for is, first of all, I like the wicks above the high. So already we're seeing price pierce the high and fail to sustain that momentum. So I kind of want to see price continue with that. We did see a nice wick there, but the wicks here have been a little bit half-hearted, not really aggressive in nature. Again, the more aggressive the wick, the better really, especially at resistance or support. You know, if price is just seeing little wicks, it doesn't have too much meaning. If it's like a big wick piercing the high and price comes straight back down, that's something I can read into and use to my favor. So maybe if this can pull back and fire another wick, that would be nice to look into. And in terms of an entry, you could probably wait for maybe a break of this counter trend line. So as price kind of stays correctly pushing, if you do see a strong close back inside of that, that itself could be a nice entry. And then of course, like I said, for targets, back to this area, then maybe back to this area. But yeah, right now, really strong level resistance, could see a push down, no confirmation to get involved yet. We could still break to the upside as well. So yeah, it's really about reading price and timing yourself well. But I would suggest if you get a strong break of the counter trend line and price continues with the wicks, I think that's a smart place for a short, at least for a smaller, short-term play. Not looking for the home run here. Maybe the bigger move is to the upside. Maybe the trend is going to continue. But if you can bet on something like that, take advantage of something like that, we can still walk away for a decent return, and the market can still trend if it wants to. Hey, what's up, Lighton? Hope you're doing good. Welcome to the stream. Euro pound, no problem. We can take a look as well. Last time I looked at Euro pound, we were consolidating. Okay. Not anymore though. We are breaking to the downside. We're seeing some momentum. So again, like I've spoke about with Euro pound, very, very flat market at the moment. This is the key level to keep an eye on. I think if price can revisit that, that naturally should give us some nice buying opportunities. Although I do think short term, I do think the bigger move for Euro pound, as I've been saying, is going to be somewhat of a trend lower. I think price is now forming a bit of a top at the high. We're ranging in this area. Once we do see a break of support there, that should give us a pretty nice trend, similar to the one we had up, hopefully similar on the way down, back into lows. So once we get the break of this, that will hopefully give us the green light for the bearish trend. But at the moment, we're not quite there yet, still trading quite flat. But the way I see Euro pound really is we formed one high over there, another one here, so a lower high, and this looks to be the next lower high. So 1, 2, 3. I do think price, especially with the kind of break of this counter trend line, will likely to now fall back into these lows. Would I be trying to take some shorts up there? Probably not, based on the conditions and how flat we are. I think the area which you want to do your business in is definitely the support level, whether it's trying to look for some buys off the low, or as I said, waiting for the breakout and maybe looking for the retest of the level for a short. That's really where I would suggest we'll have a lot of attention. People have targets there, people have entries there. You can kind of maneuver around there and find some nice opportunities. But Euro pound's still really flat, so I'm not seeing much opportunity here. Maybe there's a break and retest trade there, but I personally don't like it because of how noisy the market is right now. I think it's a bit too choppy to be trying to find some intricate trades like that. I don't think you'd be positioned well. I don't think the stop loss will be safe enough. Once stop loss above major structure, that's where it will be safer on average. Of course, I can still get stopped out, but I'll have a bit more protection there. In these areas, with the noise, it could get choppy. But yeah, looking for a push into that low, and then hopefully for a bit of a bounce. So yeah, hopefully that made sense on Euro pound. What's up, man? Zondi, welcome to the stream. Hope you're well. CCI trend strategy, nice little gem, no problem. Yeah, I mean, it's an indicator which I think is a bit slept on. A lot of people talk about stochastics, MACDs, RSI. Don't really see a lot of people talk about the CCI, so it's a really nice indicator. I started using it probably about maybe about a year back. I don't use it all the time, but it definitely has its moments, especially in those bigger trends, and especially with looking at the higher time frame. if you set the indicator on the higher time frame to what you're on, it can provide some really nice opportunities when the market is actually really oversold. Because a lot of indicators will give you so many indications of when the trend is oversold or overbought, and it doesn't really have much meaning to it. But with those tweaks, you can make it a lot more valuable. But yeah, something to go and test. Of course, with every strategy, it's going to have its losing streaks and its losing periods, but it could be a nice complement to, especially if you already have a trend following strategy. You can look at the CCI adding a little bit of a different element, different component to it. So yeah, I recommend people go check out the video if you haven't checked it out, or if you know how to use the CCI. Anyway, but appreciate it, my man. Uses are no problem item. We can take a look at that as well. No problem for euro pound. Okay, USD ZAR, and I'll probably go through my watch list as well. Okay, look at that from USD ZAR, back at the lows. It's been probably about a few weeks of me just saying, waiting for price to get here, waiting for price to get here, waiting for price to get there. And now it looks like prices finally get there. And seeing a nice bounce as well. Again, as long as price is above this, I will be bullish at support. It's such a key level. I have said that I do expect price to eventually break through the level, come back to these lows, but let's wait for the breakout to happen first, and then we can speak about the shorts, because we could still be bouncing here for a few weeks, and there could be some nice buying opportunities in the meantime. So the market for me is ranging. It's trapped at support, so we're going to treat it like that. We're not going to have the trend following hat on. We're going to have the range hat on right now, which is looking to buy as low as possible, which that's where price was, and probably take profits at resistance there. I think that would be a smart place to book partials. Maybe this area could be a little bit noisy, so maybe keep an eye on that. At the same time, you don't want to micromanage the trade too much. You want to allow yourself to take advantage of the bigger moves as well, but that could be an area to maybe keep an eye out if you do see some big red flags at that zone. But yeah, really strong bounce. I do think now you can see a push back to resistance. If of course we do get the breakout, we'll speak about the shorts and hopefully some retests of that zone and the targets of where we do expect price to get to, but there's a long way before we do get there, so I'll only kind of go into a bit more detail with that opportunity once we see the breakout. But for now, I really like how price is bouncing off the low, seeing some nice momentum, at least a push into 17.6, but I do think 17.75 would be a decent target, especially if you could time a nice entry at the lows here. You could be looking at a decent stop loss below there. That could be a decent, nice 1 to 2. So if you're not ready in entry, then you're kind of looking for price to revisit the low again, and then look for a similar entry. But yeah, usually these are very flat, so just treating it as a range. Back at the key low, lovely bounce off the low. If you're not in a position, I'd wait for another bounce. If you are, let's see if we can take a push back to the highs. But it's interesting because, of course, USDs are seeing a bit of a bounce. Of course, DXY having that bounce has helped out as well, because DXY, of course, did break through support here, but now it's back above. So if this is going to be a fake out for the DXY, and if price is now going to recover this, we could see the dollar make a move like this back to the high of the range, and of course that should help USDs make a move to the upside as well. If dollar is going to be strong, it's probably going to take USDs to the upside. But yeah, I'm still not quite convinced on the dollar. I mean, it is a fake out. Price did break to the downside, but then did recover. So as long as we can stay above, that would be a bullish signal, and I would expect more upside for the dollar at that point, and then probably downside for euro, downside for pound, and so on and so forth. So that's really where my focus is. In terms of pairs, which I'm keeping a close eye on for opportunities, I quite like CAD Yen. I quite like where we're moving into. I'm not necessarily long-term bullish on CAD Yen. I'm not necessarily looking for a big buy here, but I do think we're trading in a level of support, which I do think we can see some upside. Now, I'm waiting for a bit more downside before I do take the entry. I can already see that price is seeing some rejection here, but it's just a little bit too early. I like it if price can pierce through the low first and then recover. That would make a lot of sense for an entry. We're seeing some nice wicks there, not really any convincing momentum to get into a trade as well, especially with how price has been selling off. So I think the entry here is just a little bit too early. But let's say if price does push through the zone and then starts to reject well, I do think we can see a bit of a bounce at that low, especially if you look to how previous lows have reacted. So you've got low there, price had to push up, another low created after sweeping the low here, and then price goes for a bit of a rally, and then price sweeps the low again, creates a new low, and then of course goes through another bit of a rally. I'm kind of looking for that pattern to continue. Price sweeps the low, it creates a new low, then hopefully goes for again a bit of a rally. Maybe it does roll over, maybe it's a rally back to the highs. I'll let CAD do what it wants. But if I can position myself here with an entry in this area and a stop in this area, it allows me to take advantage of that move. Even if it's a short-term move and price does roll back over, I can still take my profits and run, or at least a break even. And if price does pick up momentum for a big swing, you could be looking at a decent 1 to 3, 1 to 4, maybe a push back into resistance. So the risk to reward makes sense, the location makes sense. Just waiting for really a good entry signal to back the trade, and I think this is a little bit too early in terms of the time. Maybe price does rally from there, but I'm not a big fan of the entry, to be honest. So waiting for price to push back down, and then the buyer can come into play. I'm also keeping an eye on EuroCAD. Now this is more of an aggressive trade, and I will be very careful with this position, but I do think price is quite overextended to the upside. Of course, overextended is a bit of a buzzword, because price can always be even more overextended. Just because price has gone far doesn't mean it can't reverse again. It can't continue going further. But in FX, markets that have gone pretty far, especially which are showing tiring price action, they're likely going to drop. And my plan for EuroCAD is to be looking for some sells at the high here. And I quite like how we're moving, similar to what we just mentioned with CAD Yen. Every time price does sweep the highs and creates a new high, it's not by much, and momentum quickly drops, and we quickly do reverse back. So you can see here, with every high price creates, it creates a new high, then it drops, creates a new high, then it drops, creates a new high, then it drops. And what's it done? It's just created a new high. So I'm looking to see if I can take advantage of another one of those drops. Now, it might just be a position back to here, then we continue. Maybe it does turn into a bigger sell. Maybe it's a very slight move and continue. Or maybe price does just rally and flies to the upside. But I'm banking on us having that drop. In terms of entries and managing the position, in terms of entries, I kind of want to see price push back to the highs again. So, reject the highs well here, and maybe pierce the highs again one more time. In terms of managing the position, well, I am greeted with this support level straight away. And again, when I am going against trend and things are really aggressive, I have to be quite cautious. Every support level could be the level that does take price back to highs. If I'm pro trend, I can be a little bit more lenient, stomach some levels of support resistance a little bit more. But let's say if I do catch a short here with a stop above the high entries in this area, this will have to be my first target, even though the risk reward is not anything brilliant. Might be even less than a 1-to-1. We'll have to see how the entry does develop, but probably will be less than a 1-to-1 into that low. But this definitely has to be my level, at least my first target. Because if I do see price reject that well, maybe price does go against me. If price breaks that, then we're looking good. Then the next targets will become this area naturally. And at that point, I'll be locking in gains, moving stops to break even. And at that point, I'll lock in some more gains. But the plan will be seeing if I can catch that reversal. Because the whole advantage point of timing your entries up here is that if it does play out, you could be onto a really big winner. That's the advantage. Because really what you want to do is wait for the trend to actually reverse and then look for pullbacks. You have a lot more probability in your favor because at least you've got the established trend. That trend is likely over, and the pullback's a lot more high probability. If you do take the trades up here, a lot more aggressive, a lot more risky, but the real benefit between this trade and that trade is where you're positioned. Here you take advantage of this move and maybe of the continuation. Here you're more so just looking for pullbacks. You're not really positioned well, so if there's a bigger pullback to happen, you probably do get taken out of the position. But because you're at the top here, you can stomach the bigger pullbacks and still look for those gigantic moves potentially if the trend does completely reversed. So that's the real advantage of entering up there. But of course, the downside, it's really aggressive. So in terms of management, I have to be very cautious. But I like it, so I'm going to keep an eye on it. Again, the entry is going to be very important. If the entry is not good enough, I won't take the trade. If the entry is good, then I'll take the trade. It's only time will tell. You know, maybe things develop well, maybe things don't. That will kind of make or break the trade. Trade with Mickey, what's up? Good question. Do you zoom into price or zoom out to the high time frame? Well, do you mean when you zoom into price, you're talking about like the finer details, like the smaller highs and lows, like these? Or do I like zoom out, look at the bigger picture? I mean, in terms of marking market structure, you know, this is market structure to these high highs and high lows. And if I zoom out, you know, this is market structure as well. It's just on a smaller scale. That's more kind of minor. This is more kind of your major swings. But market structure just analyzes highs and lows. So any high, any low you can potentially pinpoint is going to classify as market structure. And you can be as detailed or as relaxed as you want to be. In terms of what I'm taking into consideration as market structure, I'm normally looking at the major swings because it's just a lot easier to digest and it allows me to look for bigger trades in general. Because if I catch the swing correctly, I'm looking for that swing back into the high rather than trying to pinpoint, you know, these smaller swings which don't really provide much opportunity unless you're on the lower time frame. But then again, you'd be looking at major structure on that time frame. So let's say if you're looking at the 4-hour chart, the swings in the market structure I'll be taking into consideration would be these major points here. As I'm doing with the trade I just talked about, you know, I'm looking to try and anticipate the next high forming for a push to the low. You know, that's the market structure I'm mapping. These finer details, I'm not so convinced with them. It's more so the major structure I'm keeping an eye on, because you will get lost really if you focus on every single swing. You'll get lost because there's so much to take into consideration. If you just focus on the major swings, you get an idea of the general trend. And then in terms of entries and stop losses, you know, that's a different component in itself. But in terms of what structure to follow, I normally look at the major ones. For example, these swings here do become major if I drop to like the 15 or the 30-minute chart. Let's drop to the 15. Let's go find that. And now these swings become quite major, and these are the swings I was focusing on the 15-minute chart. So on the 4-hour, it was quite small and quite detailed. But now on the 15, these are quite major structure, and these are the swings, you know, I'll look to focus on now. Because at least, you know, if I do catch it right, there's room to the upside. So my advice wouldn't be to zoom in, it would be to zoom out. You have a little bit more clarity and a little bit more... it'd be easier to trade really, because the smaller swings, they're going to be consistent, they're going to be, you know, tricky to trade with. Whatever time frame you're on really, even if you're on the 1-minute chart, look at the major swings. It's going to be easier to map out. The smaller ones, like candle to candle, that's just you know, difficult to follow. So yeah, I would suggest zoom out, look at the... Again, don't necessarily have to drop to a higher time frame. It's not like I'm moving to like the daily chart to analyze it. I'm just kind of zooming out, you know, just scrolling to look at the bigger picture, then mapping out those structure. So hopefully that made sense. But yeah, at the moment, not any positions to discuss. So I think CAD Yen longs off this area. EuroCAD shorts off the high. Euro Aussie longs off the low. Again, these are all hypothetical opportunities. I need confirmations to back them up. It's not necessarily I'm looking to buy as soon as price gets there. But if price develops well and I see the necessary confirmations, then yeah, it could turn into a very nice opportunity. And also Aussie dollar at the high as well. A short-term trade. I do like what I'm seeing. So I'll say those opportunities is where my focus is at the most. Aussie dollar shorts, Euro Aussie longs, CAD yen longs, and Euro CAD shorts as well. I prefer Euro CAD to pound CAD as well, even though it's a similar opportunity. It's just because with pound CAD we're quite flat, and we've kind of got price already created higher highs to where we're trading. Whereas with Euro CAD, price is at the highest point within this trend. So by default, I do expect price to top out here. And I think price is more of an incentive to drop lower. With pound CAD, the fact that we've already been higher, there's always that incentive that price could still rally to actually go and take out this high, because of course that's where potentially orders and liquidity will be, and then we potentially might drop. So that's where I would have a bit more joy with pound CAD. But Euro CAD, like I said, we're at highs at the moment, so in terms of rolling over, this is prime real estate for that to happen. So I quite like what I'm seeing with Euro CAD. Same with Aussie dollar, same with Euro Aussie, same with CAD yen, and that's kind of where my focus is for now. USD, I'm kind of just waiting to see how we develop. Of course, we've got news later today, so that will be interesting because that will probably help shape the bias in terms of what USD is actually going to do. Is this the fake out for us to go higher? I'm not quite convinced, to be honest. Yeah, I'm not quite convinced. I mean, it could be. Again, I'm not a fortune teller. I've just got to focus on opportunities which make sense to me, which look clear. If it's not clear, then I'm going to chalk it to a side. No problem, trade with Mickey. Happy to help. But yeah, that's the case I'm in with USD. We'll see what CPI does. But is CPI today or tomorrow? Today's Wednesday, right? Okay, I think CPI might be tomorrow, actually. I think PPI today. Yeah, PPI today. Yeah, CPI tomorrow. Yeah, my bad. CPI tomorrow, PPI today. Got the two mixed up. And also ECB interest rates tomorrow as well. I'm looking to trade Euro Aussie, so that could be interesting for me. Any Aussie news rest of the week? I don't think so. Yeah, no Aussie news. So yeah, keep an eye on PPI today. CPI is going to be the bigger one tomorrow, so that's really where, if we don't see much movement today, then tomorrow hopefully is where we'll get the clarity. But dollar has been really choppy, to be honest. The best way to trade dollar the past month or so has just been looking to trade highs and trade lows. Anyone kind of looking for trend following opportunities will probably had a difficult time because the market hasn't been trending, of course. There probably was still some opportunities, again, especially intraday, but there hasn't been any continuation, so not the best technique right now, and we're still quite flat. But yeah, we'll see what the news does bring today and tomorrow, and hopefully that does clarify the bias there. In terms of yen pairs, I'm still not quite convinced with a bias with the yen as well. It's quite rare when I don't have a bias for yen or for USD. Normally I at least have a bias for one of them. But at the moment, yen is still very flat as well. Again, I spoke about some bias here. Can make a lot of sense. This is the yen basket, by the way. So if the yen does bounce here, that'll show us some yen strength. Then we'll expect the yen pairs to drop. They will be inversely correlated. But yen is still very flat. So again, not looking for much there. But when I'm looking at pairs like GJ, really flat. Again, the only opportunity that makes sense will be at the high or the low of the range. Euro yen is trading at support here. I like the wicks. We could see a bounce and a push back into resistance. CAD yen, I'm looking at something similar as well. That's the opportunity I'm looking to buy. Aussie yen, we're at resistance, so there could be some shorting opportunities at the high there. Monitor that because this is a very significant level, and you could see price take a bit of a dive. So there could be some shorts to keep an eye on. New Zealand yen is kind of in the middle of nowhere. We did break through the trend line at the start of the week. I was actually looking to see if we could form a lower high as we come into this area. Nice demand zone, really aggressive bearish momentum. Nice corrective move to the upside. I was looking for shorts in this area. I wasn't really a big fan of price because it was quite flat. Didn't really reject too well, so I didn't find any entries. I was looking to see if we could break through lows here and then take an entry on the close, but we didn't have that. And then we actually saw momentum. This is as the week opened, on Sunday, and that kind of just put to bed that bearish bias. Now maybe we do see price pick up momentum and push up again. And in terms of dollar yen, I'm pretty sure at the low of the range. Oh no, we bounced off the low. Sorry, we have bounced off the low. Nice wick into the zone. Would be nice if we kind of pierced it slightly, like we did at the highs there. Very nice shorts, wick through, price rolled over. Now we're just coming back into the middle again, so not see much opportunity here in the 50% area. As I keep saying, that's the area to stay away. That's the area where you see a lot of noise, and that's not the area which you want to be placing your entries. Sometimes the simple trade is always sometimes the simple trade is the best trade. Not always, but most of the time it is. And a lot of people shorting the highs, buying the lows feels like it's too simple, but normally just waiting for really good signs of rejection at the highs and at the lows of a very established range is going to be the best trade. If you are looking for trending opportunities, breakouts, and of course you need to wait for price to clear the range if that's what you're looking for. Trading inside the range is obviously just going to be a recipe for disaster if you're looking at any kind of trend following strategies, or most strategies anyway. So yeah, dollar yen bouncing off the low, but you can see another yen pair which is ranging, not providing much clarity. And Swiss yen did see a nice reaction at the high. This one did pierce the high there. Nice wick at the high, strong close. The only thing that's against this trade is just because the market is so bullish. The rejection is really nice, strong close, nice wick through the high. So by default, this is a nice place to a short, but it's just you do have that added risk because the trend is up, and seeing a break of the high is not going to really. It won't take much to break the high essentially. If this was off a long-standing bearish trend, then that would be a nice short because you've got that momentum backing your trade, not only a resistance, but you're in line with the trend. So that makes sense. A short here is of course at a nice healthy zone. In this case, it did work. But from experience, these entries are a bit more risk in favor of risk than if you were pro trend. But again, what do I expect now from Swiss yen? Not too sure. We've been very consistent with these high lows. Now we're coming to an areas where I don't really want to do any business. If I'm going to do business with Swiss yen, it's going to be at the highs or at the lows here. Oh, that's the wrong tool. At the lows, that's where I want to do my business. Like I said, these will be more aggressive, so more so towards that areas where I want to take my trades. Now that we're coming back into these areas, maybe we do bounce, maybe we do see another higher low. I wouldn't necessarily bet on it. It has been really corrective and very tired, so the market is quite dry right now. Swing, you're asking if I'm a swing trader? Yes, I would classify myself as a swing trader. My average hold time is like, well, for winners, it's probably about a week. But if you include losers, probably does drop to like 2 or 3 days because losers are normally get stopped out within the same day. But of course, winners, they could go on for like 2-3 weeks if it's a really big one, or even longer. But anyway, guys, we have come up to the end of the stream. I will be live again tomorrow from the same time as always, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. every weekday. So if you do want to see more of me, more of the analysis, or just enjoy being here, make sure you tune in for tomorrow's stream at the same time as always, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. UK time. If you have enjoyed today's stream, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and of course, hit the bell, share with your friends. It does really help out the channel. I do really appreciate it. If you do want to support the channel further, there's the memberships you can sign up to, more added bonuses there, perks, members only videos. So if you do want to support the channel, check it out. If you haven't done so already, and of course, drop your email into the Google Forms if you want to participate in the Perps Trading Challenge as well on our platform. That is, of course, linked at the top of the chat. But guys, appreciate you tuning into another stream. I will see you guys in the next one. Of course, drop a like before you leave. And again, watch out for some news. We do have PPI coming out later. That could be interesting for the DXY. I still need my bias to be sorted out, so I'm actually hoping we do have some big moves, but we shall see. But anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in. Have a good one. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Six AI agents, each built with a unique edge. Miko, AI, Team Leader. Ori AI, Fundamental Analyst. Exi, AI, Technical Analyst. Mesa, AI, Risk Management Specialist. Fenwa, AI Market Sentiment Analyst. And Naledi AI, the cryptocurrency expert. Together, they're engineered to protect, guide, and transform your trading. The future of trading is here. Experience Zentrix AI.